and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding. We, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
This honourable host now resume its sittings. Call of the roll.
Mr. Whittle, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Mr. Shaw, Dr. Chang, Mr. Montague, Miss Grange, Mr. Henry, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Holness, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Darrell Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Hutchinson, Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo-Fort, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Green, Mr. Terrelong, Mr. Main, Mr. Arscott, Mr. Azan, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Leslie Campbell, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Miss Daly, Mr. Daly, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Fagan, Dr. Ferguson, Mr. Golding, Dr. Guy, Miss Hannah, Mr. Hales, Mrs. Holness, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Kellier, Dr. McNeil, Miss Nita, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Michael Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Pickersgill, Mr. Redmond, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson,
Present.
Mr. Stewart, Reverend Thwaites, Mr. Dwayne Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Wright.
Mr. Speaker, if I might be permitted, love is truly in the air, because we were hosted this evening by the Prime Minister this afternoon to a lovely Valentine's lunch. And it would be remiss of me if I didn't, on my own behalf, and those ladies on this side of the bench, ask the Leader of Opposition Business to convey to Dr. Peter Phillips our grateful thanks for the Valentine roses that we have all received. Thank you very much. Love is truly in the air, and the Prime Minister did say at lunchtime that we want the love to continue for a little while.
Statements by Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in that same vein, we want to wish the Honorable Attorney General a happy birthday, as today is her birthday.
Statement by Minister. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following estimates of expenditure 2019-2020 for the financial year ending March 31, 2020. Jamaica Public Bodies estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2020. Government of Jamaica fiscal policy paper for the financial year 2019-2020. Medium-term debt management strategy, financial year 2019-2020 to 2022-23. 2019-2020 public sector consolidated estimates of expenditure for financial year ending 31st March 2020. Revenue estimates 2019-2020 for financial year ending 31st March 2020. Tax expenditure statement 2019.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions. Papers. Reports from committees. Notices of motions given orally.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next sitting of the House, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the estimates of expenditure 2019-20 for the financial year ending March 31st, 2020, the Jamaica Public Bodies estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2020, the Government of Jamaica fiscal policy paper for the financial year 2019-2020, the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2019-2020 to the financial year 2022-23, the 2019-2020 public sector consolidated estimates of expenditure for financial year ended March 31st, 2020, the revenue estimates 2019-2020 for the financial year ending March 31st, 2020, and the tax expenditure statement 2019, which were laid on the table of the House on the 14th of February 2019, be referred to the Standing Finance Committee of the whole House of Representatives, consisting of all the members of the House for consideration and report. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice at a later stage today. I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Questions and answers to questions. Motions that may be made.
Mr. Speaker. At the expiration of 21 days, I beg to give notice of the following questions, which I will ask the Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so sorry. I thought that at the first sitting we would have the continuing motions for the committees to be appointed. Are we doing that today? Oh, all right. I was absent. I was absent. I was absent. Very well. I was absent.
Motions relating to sitting of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without the leave of the House first obtained.
Mr. Speaker, I now move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly titled the Compulsory Acquisition Shares in Petrojam Limited Act 2019.
A bill shortly entitled the Compulsory Acquisition Shares in Petrojam Limited Act 2019 read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill next week.
Public business. Public business. Mr. Semudo. Public business.
Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, the notice of which I gave earlier.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, the documents referred to in the motion will be tabled or considered by the Standing Finance Committee, which will meet on Monday, the 4th of March at 10 a.m. and will continue as required to Tuesday, the 5th of March, starting at 10 a.m. as well.
Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it. Mr. Semudo.
Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business today, so I invite you to adjourn this House until next week, Tuesday, the 19th of February. Next week. 19th. Next week. Mr. Speaker. No. That, incidentally, Mr. Speaker, that is to facilitate the debate of the matter that was just presented by the Prime Minister.
The motion is that this House be adjourned until the 19th of March. Leader wishes to correct himself. I just was following the resolution. We want to amend the resolution to mean the 19th of February. Those in favor? Those against? As of it. This Honorable House stands adjourned until the 19th.
We live in a digital environment where information is easily accessed and opportunities are limitless. An age to think big, to innovate and lead. But beware, the digital space has its challenges. Manage your digital self carefully because the consequences are real.
At least 10 incoming freshmen had their recent acceptance withdrawn after posting extremely offensive images and statements on a private Facebook group.
Stop and think before you broadcast and post messages. Before downloading third-party apps. Because your digital footprint follows you wherever you go. The Broadcasting Commission, your partner for a new day.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Williams-Mills, Jamaica 400 champion, and you're watching PBCJ People's Station.
There's a long-distance relay that's still on. Many have taken it this far, each leg as important as the next, each challenge faced with determination. Now it's your turn to take the baton. People living with HIV and AIDS and those who are vulnerable need your commitment. It stands in the way of a better quality of life for all of us and our self-respect as a region. It stands in the way of victory in the fight to stop the spread of HIV. Reject stigma and discrimination. Get us to zero.
Deep, deep in the forest, far away from everywhere, with a bunch of mighty little critters, they're called the Paw-Paw Bears. These are brave and fearless paw-paws, as everyone well knows. When you get in trouble, and this goes double, you call the Paw-Paw Bears. Paw-Paw Bears, Paw-Paw Bears, Paw-Paw Bears. These paw-paws pop up all around like magic. They're there. The troubles that you thought you had have vanished in the air. So don't forget those paw